Skills Summit. We are super excited to be here. We're really happy to have so many people join us. Please make sure that in today's Life Skills Summit, you are connecting, sharing your thoughts, asking questions, and most of all, being ready to hear the advice from these wonderful guest speakers. So as you all know, and as a reminder, LMF Network is on a mission to level up the confidence and careers of women and professionals globally. And they've got a big goal, a goal that we are all on together today. And that goal is to build the confidence and careers of 25,000 people by 2025. So we've got lots to do. And this is what this summit is all about today. It's about introducing their new e-platform. And that e-platform, please look into it because it's filled with masterclasses, mentoring, valuable resources and community forums to help everybody get better every single day and level up their careers. Now, by joining this panel today, LMF Network are offering you a free trial for an entire month. So please make sure you take them up on that. And from me, thank you so much for inviting me to host this wonderful panel. But with further ado, let's get started. We are talking today about balancing motherhood, career, and starting a business. And we have three wonderful career women here with us today. They own businesses, they're super successful, and you know what? They happen to be mothers too. So today we're here to debunk that myth that all mothers have to leave the workforce. And today these wonderful women will share their stories. So before we get into some very juicy questions that I've got, I just wanted to do some quick intros so everyone knows who's here. So let's start with Susanna, please.
Hi, I'm Susanna Chambers and I am a mum of three. My children are aged 17, 14 and 11. My day job is as an agile coach, but let's just say I've got an eclectic mix in my career portfolio. I think I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Susanna. And Becky?
Morning, everyone. I'm Becky Cann. At the minute, I'm still on my journey to become a mother. I've been having an IVF journey now for 6.5 years, which is still continuing at the moment. But by day, I am a apprenticeship trainer. By night, I am an assessor, so I grade apprenticeships and give them their grades. But I'm also experimenting now with my side business. I've got 17 years in marketing experience, so I'm looking for a consultancy / coaching because it sits neatly within my portfolio of being a coach by day. So I want to explore that with a few more confidence with a few more ladies at the moment. So yeah, experimenting at the minute.
Thank you, Becky. And Dr. Sam?
Oh, hello. Hi, everyone. So great to be here. And thanks, Nadia, for sharing this. And really lovely to hear about Susanna and Becky's, all round like jobs and moonlighting, on top of being a mother. It's amazing. I'm Samantha Hugh, and I'm the founder and director of a company called ADHD Girls. It's for social impact. And I have a dual mission to empower girls and women with ADHD to thrive in society and to improve societal understanding of neurodiversity. So I have very eclectic work experiences as well, having worked in 16 work sectors, beginning from a career in science and then, exploration that ensued after that. So finally, I think I found my place, and that is to create my own place in the world of work. So really excited to be here and share with everyone.
And thank you. It's brilliant just to get that bit of introduction from the three of you, because I can tell already we're going to have a fantastic conversation about the journey to motherhood, being mothers, balancing life and the workplace. There's so many plates that we are all spinning here right now. And the first question I want to direct to all of you and give you all a chance to answer. People often ask women, can you have it all? They definitely don't seem to ask men this. We've all heard the idea that women can't have it all and they have to decide between career or motherhood. And even, through this pandemic, we've seen 1 in 4 women considering career downshifts or exiting the workforce altogether. I wanted just to hear everybody's thoughts on that, because I myself could talk for hours on this topic, but we're here today to learn from the three of you. So it'd be wonderful if, Becky, you could start with your thoughts on that.
Want to have it all. I'm going to start with actually deciding between career and motherhood. I thought this all the way through my 20s. I actually put my career first. I finished university. I was chasing job titles and a career. So I delayed having my family, which has actually nearly cost me motherhood without actually realising. As I've just said, I've been trying to conceive for 6.5 years, and we're still on that journey at the moment, my husband and I. But I need to ask myself, why should it be one or the other? Why can't I have both? What I'm doing now is planning that when I do become a mum, I want a family, I want a career, and I still want to be part of that workforce. I feel that it's my place to find my balance with it all, with me and my family. My husband's been my biggest cheerleader. He's actually considering doing compressed hours to hopefully support our family going forward. So, we do this together as a partnership. I think this is where employers need to help us as employees as well with our return to work. My husband wants to support me by doing compressed hours. I need to find, the juggling act to be able to return to work. I don't want to have to think about leaving it. So I think more choices from HR and employees, and we need to kind of raise that discussion at those levels as well. When I do become a mum, I don't want to have to think about not returning to work. I want to have it all, but I want to have that family. I want to have that career. I want to have my own businesses. I want choices, but I firmly understand the challenges and blockers that surround that for all parents as well. And I think it's still the continued fight that we all have, isn't it?
Absolutely, and thank you, Becky. That's a really heartfelt, open response, and I really applaud you for sharing with us. Susanna, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Nadia. I think that the response in terms of the pandemic changes, for me, relate to that ecosystem of people that we have in our lives. That, of course, we know, however confident or assertive we are about our choices, inevitably those in our ecosystem influence and impact on our decision making. Now, with the pandemic, of course, that inevitably reshaped, right, the way in which we were interacting with our networks, not least from spending so much time, perhaps with more people than we would have otherwise in our network more immediately. And I agree. I don't think it should be a binary choice, but my perception from coaching clients, and I'm thinking about this kind of at scale in terms of the stories I've heard from coaching clients about their own decision making, is that almost as a result of the pandemic, their decision making was more immediately impacted because it all seemed so much more intense, under lockdown as well. And well, do we know what's going to happen in the future? Everything's so uncertain. And from a motherhood perspective, of course, a key fact is that in this country, it was reported recently that there has been a noted reduction in demand for early years education also. So that inevitably will be playing a part, I'm sure, in terms of these choices that women are making. If actually they've got very used to being at home around their children, that is a very different landscape to when I was taking my firstborn to nursery for the first time 17 years ago. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think what's really standing out for me is this word choices. Dr. Sam, your thoughts?
Hello. Yeah, so recently I came across this book called We Need More Stories. So they're talking about this book's great, and it's by someone called Nasreen Malik, and she talked about gender equality. It's a myth that women have it all in the first place, because it seems like we're constantly bargaining, for our rights, and whether it's invisible or visible, right? We're bargaining with society to have it all. With our families, can you be there? Can I work on my interests? Is that going to make you happy? Is that going to make me happy? So, and also bargaining with ourselves. What are the perception and the conditioning? What did I grow up with that make me think, maybe I should actually be there? And so for myself, I really struggled with having it all when I became a new mom 7 years ago. And what I didn't prepare for was, an undiagnosed neurodivergence that gave me anxiety after my child was born. So that was not something that you could put into place, not having the knowledge of how to support yourself. So Yeah, and what Becky is talking about having more choices around work and a supportive employer as well. Because at the time I thought, maybe flexible working would be a way to do this. And that was 7 years ago when, my manager, who was a great person, but, also at the same time told me that if you're not there, then no one's going to do the work. So you can't really go 2 days a week, even though I did suggest job share. So yeah, in a small kind of summary, of what's to come, is that how do we channel, our intensities into both things, right? Our career and motherhood, knowing that if we do both, neither is really going to get our full attention. So like in actual sense, you can have it all if you have support system and the ecosystem, like Susanna said. But that, as we know, in the West is few and far between, if we live far from our families. And certainly for my case, because I come from Malaysia.
Really insightful comments, and again, things that are standing out for me: choices, support system, having that ecosystem. Why is all the pressure just put onto this one individual going through this journey towards motherhood, through motherhood? So Becky, I wanted to come back to you and ask you a question of, I know that you're a digital marketing consultant and assessor, you're building your own consultancy, your career is going strength to strength. It's incredibly time consuming. You've shared that your other full-time job is actually this IVF journey, and it's been brilliant that you've shared with us about what your husband's planning on doing. How have you been balancing this career, entrepreneurship, and starting a family?
Thanks for the question. And I think the short answer is that I'm still working on them all at this moment in time. I wanted to share the IVF journey because it has been quite horrific over the last 6.5 years. To kind of be told that you will struggle to conceive was never even on my radar. My 20s, I was just career. 32, yeah, got married, let's start a family. Didn't really realise there'd be a bit of a barrier to that. But the journey itself is, and being part of this LMF network is actually in the last 18 months has really reframed my mind about career, about business, about my life going forward. The journey has broken me multiple times, but it's actually shaped me into the person that I'm becoming. It's made me more resilient. I've had to really pick myself up off the floor, but it's made me a much more confident person, because it's a really hard piece of information to take in as a woman, that your body is not actually doing what it should do. So actually it's melted away some of probably my worst fears that I had about working, because they pale into significance now with what I've been going through. So earlier this year, that journey started to move in a positive way. So my LMF mentee that I supported, my first one last year, was Niab. She got in touch with me, some great news. It just really inspired me. I should really put into practice what I preach. I'd managed to help this young lady move forward and put herself out there. It was absolutely fantastic. I think this is where really the start of my fears started melting away. So I started attending some local networking events, just putting myself out there as well. And I kind of realised at that point that I've got so much knowledge to share from a coaching perspective, from marketing, from training, and actually more just to help women raise their confidence as well. I coached a 60-year-old lady who runs a business for 20 odd years, but she still feels very vulnerable as a woman, actually working in a male orientated, she owns a shed and garden centre, and they keep asking where's the male manager, which is shocking. But it's damaged her confidence at times, so it was really interesting to have those conversations with her. So I've also been reading Sonia's book, which has been a really refreshing change to some of the textbooks I've read in the past, and that's really helped me kickstart my thoughts about the consulting and coaching abilities that I want to bring my skill set together. I've actually requested very recently to go part-time in my full-time role at the moment. I'm trying to make those decisions now. My employer's been really supportive of that, and I can't, thank them enough. So I've decided to go 3 days, leaving me 2 days to fit more time in to do my assessing and to explore more the consultancy side. But the IVF journey has also given me that pause to, I can't do everything, and I need to be building my body to be able to receive going forward, and there's only me that can do that as well, because the pressure is on me to carry a child. And I think for me, going back to the choices, is that I still want to do all the things that I love. I love marketing, I love coaching, I love teaching apprentices still. And when I become a mum, like I said, I still want to be able to do all of those things. I just need to figure it out. So for me now, a career going forward is about multiples. I want to combine my job and my side hustles. I've realised my worth more recently as well, and I'm not afraid to ask for it anymore. One of our fellow LMF mentors, Sonam, she's been coaching me recently. She made a really excellent point. We've probably grown up with the career ladder. And I kind of thought that it's only really for a subsection of people really now. And ladders are linear, it's quite fixed. And I'm really starting to think more, no, it's not a ladder. For me, it's got to be different things and multiple facets and things like that. And I think if I want to be a mum going forward, to have the family, the career, the business, I need to have multiples, and I need to have different streams coming through. And I think that's where Sonia's message really resonates with me at the minute, is having those side hustles, having those choices, because our careers are no longer linear anymore. That's the thing I've really took away. And actually my path to parenthood is not linear either. So I think I kind of go back to what Susan and Sam said, design your own path.
Yeah, that's really, really inspiring. And again, Becky, thank you for sharing your journey with us and those wonderful examples of how you are changing other people's lives. Like, that is just incredible. And actually, I love what you said there about, you taking a bit of your own advice, because I often think that with myself, like, why don't I listen to myself? I've now got a question for Dr. Sam. So I understand, being a mum myself, I understand it can get overwhelming, wearing lots of hats, business owner, professional. Then we add other intersectional elements like being neurodiverse. It becomes really, really complex, right? There's so many, and I often visualize it as just all these plates that you've got to keep spinning, and it can get, it's a lot of hard work. So I wanted you to share your experience and what have been your main personal challenges, because you've touched upon your own personal journey and that anxiety that you had post-pregnancy.
Yeah, so I mean, there's good, and not so good sides to it all, So I've worked in 16 work sectors, and half of it was actually done whilst I was a mother, and I really think that there's no one in the world as productive as someone who has to look after children, because especially if you have this interest, in your head, like you need to channel it to something. We're constantly thinking, what can we do? What can we do now? But then during the early childhood, the early childcare years, your hands are almost tight, especially with breastfeeding or, bottle feeding children, like babies when they're young, really takes all of it, So for myself, like, I love, the anecdote that Becky, as I mentioned about, the non-linear kind of income streams that you're generating, and Susanna as well, your experience with it. Because I've been diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 40, and I know that all the thought patterns that I had when I was a mother is not linear. Our world is curvy linear. And I had to create my own place after working in 16 work sectors, knowing that that is the only place I'll feel truly comfortable in, being a mother, and having my own career in a sense that I'm creating it. So I feel it's really hard for me to go into a job that someone tells me what to do and dictates what time I have to do it and what my deadline is. So I feel so much better if I have autonomy and ownership. So at the end of the day, it's really about what you value, what is important for you as a person and your family. Because I wish someone had told me that early on, when I told my manager that I need flexible working, and how heartbroken I was when he told me that no, you can't, and then I felt like, oh, that's my career kind of over, up in flames because I became a mother. And, but I continued working. I became a columnist. I created my soft furnishing business. I did everything I could while keeping a young person alive. And I think that women don't give themselves enough credit, and also society doesn't help, because it's not enough to just be a mother. You constantly ask, so what are you doing then? What are your plans? What do you do with your free time? I don't actually have any free time. I'm sure all of you have been asked that, right?
Oh, so you just going home tonight to chill? And I look at them like, yeah, to chill.
Flat on the sofa and fall asleep, yeah. So that's it. And it's not just me, though. I ran a poll recently on LinkedIn and on Instagram. My community has said that these are neurodivergent parents, and they said 55% of them said they really need help, and 21% said their work took a backseat. 16% said that they had a lot of help, with the ecosystem that you mentioned, and 8% said that their partner took a career break. And these people are referring to their partners who are women. And so when I asked the community of women with ADHD on Instagram, and they said about 69% of them said that they struggle to get back on track. And I think what they mean is to get back on track on a job that pays them like that with an employer, with a system. But the people who really thrive were the ones that created their own places and, like you said, have multiple income streams. And I think really there is this sense of really needing to own that, because things have really changed now. Times have changed. In the past, we would look and see, oh, actually, there's not so many multi-potentialites out there, so we're quite unusual. And there is this anxiety about being the only one doing it. But now, the world has changed. We're making work for us. So it's really about having the confidence to own that and, be kind to yourself.
That's super powerful, making work for us. I think that's so important. And I love the fact that we are debunking this perception that everything has to be linear, or what we expect of other people. And what I mean by that is, that we're living in the world of, Instagram, where everything looks like it's easy. Everything looks like it can be balanced with just, if you're a strong mother or mother to be or whatever it may be. And actually, we need to really focus on reality. And reality is that companies and businesses need to change their way of supporting staff, or women will be building their own businesses without them. And I think that this is now the world that we're in. And I love the fact that we've got such an empowering panel here that all have these wonderful side hustles, this entrepreneurship. It's just fantastic. And Susanna, I know that you've recently obtained your coaching diploma, so huge kudos and congratulations to you. Being an agile coach lead, mum of 3, wow, I can only imagine how difficult that must be. Among everything else that you do during the pandemic, things can't have been easy. Have you ever reconsidered your career or business path due to the pressures and challenges of motherhood?
There is a very famous saying from the Greek philosopher Plato: necessity is the mother of invention. I found myself taking a completely different life path in some respects than I expected. Through externally driven circumstances, I found myself being a single mum to my 3 children. So when you're in a situation where if you don't drive those side hustles, you can't feed your kids and you can't keep a roof over their heads, that is pretty compelling as a motivator.
Absolutely.
Right. So when you're in the position where you actually don't care anymore, actually, what people think about your decision, because to provide for your children, that's what you need to do. That is both incredibly stressful, incredibly tiring, but it is also very freeing. And this is where, I really embrace all aspects of my career portfolio. So I mentioned, I'm agile coach lead by day, but yes, I'm a leadership coach, executive coach. I'm a professional musician. I teach music. I model professionally. I've got contract modeling. And all of those things would never have arisen in my career had I not been in the horrendous situation I was placed in. And I think that part of the mindset opportunity we've got as women and as leaders is to keep that beginner's mindset constantly thinking, okay, this is not the journey I envisaged. But do you know what? There could be some really cool stuff in here. And I'm going to go with it. I use this phrase, follow the energy. So the answer is, at any given stage, yes, you know, I could have said, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mum. There was a time when I wanted to go part-time, but as I say, circumstances meant that that really was not an option for me at the time. But as things have become easier, I am constantly faced with challenges. You know, every time I'm offered a contract, I make a decision. Do I spend that time with my children, or do I go and do that work? And the way in which that's been made easier for me is absolutely involving my children in understanding that journey that they've been observing me taking. And my children are my biggest cheerleaders. You know, I've got a few family members. I haven't got a partner to support me on that journey, but my children absolutely have been my leading lights to keep me going with that. And I'm so glad that, you know, actually ultimately I've not felt I've been in a position where I've needed to choose. So almost accidentally, I have ended up having it all in that respect. But you know, it's not been an easy path, as all of us have got our story to tell, right? You know, we work with what we've got.
Absolutely, and I love that you've shared that as well, you know, that personal story, because there is this perception that you have to choose between things, that you can't have it all, that you know, you're trying to climb an uphill battle where everything's against you, and there are so many things against us. We know that. We know that the traditional workplace environment isn't necessarily set up for times that we may need to be most productive as mothers or mothers to be. We know that the childcare crisis and the cost of childcare in this country I want to say couldn't be worse, but you know, as recent news have shown us, everything can get much worse when you think it's at its worst. There's many things to consider here, but I really enjoy that we're all talking a lot about mindset. We're talking about leveraging off our community, leveraging off our village, leveraging off those around us, and leveraging off this panel right now. The support that we're getting from one another in our different journeys is fantastic. There was a point that you raised to me earlier, Becky, about child rearing often being seen as in the hands of the mother and the mother alone. And I just wanted you to bring in your thoughts on that as well, please.
Yeah, it's I look at the landscape of my own personal friendships at the moment, and it is at 99% female, having to take time out of their career, take that pause, then reevaluate, can I go back, and what can I go back to? There is a 1% out of our friendship group. One of our female friends was the breadwinner, so it was the man that you know, stayed at home and raised the children, and it's been so interesting to see his point of view with it as well, and even the differences of taking the kids to school, how things are in the playground and things like that. So I think for me it's more kind of broken that mold of I do want my husband to play more of a part in this. I think for everything in our relationship, even constructing our wedding, it was 50-50. Our relationship's been 50-50. So I'm walking into parenthood and I'm like, well, why am I thinking 100% when, you know, we've done everything else 50-50? That should be a continuing theme. It's something I've fought for in my relationship as well, that and I think, again, it's getting away from that traditionalism. His mum was very much a stay-at-home mum, and dad went to work, where mine was actually a little bit the opposite. Both my parents worked, but my dad was home first. He was more of the parent giver at the time when I was growing up. So I've had very different views on how parenting, and I hate the word should be done, because it's down to the individuals, isn't it, of what works best for you. And I think for me, I'm starting to rebel a little bit against society norms and conventions. And I think there was another point that I wanted to make about, you know, there's this word failure. But I want to ask the question, in whose eyes are you failing? If your children are happy, content, fed, watered, surely that's enough. If somebody else thinks you're failing, or, you know, it's not the way it should be done, that's their opinion. And I think for me, this whole, again, the IVF journey my family is going to be made up in a very different way. And I've had to come to a lot of acceptance about that as well. So I think I'm kind of rebelling against, the whole purpose of failing. My body's failed me. And that is a whole new level of failure in my eyes, that actually I'm then starting to reframe again about, well, what does failure mean in business and working? I think, like you said, Susanna, you had to out of necessity. And I think as long as you're happy, your kids are happy, who else's opinion cares, really, at the end of the day. And I've gone slightly off tangent, but it's, it's all about carers and child rearing, isn't it? I think we've all got a part to play, and it goes back to your ecosystem. We all have a part to play. At the minute, it doesn't feel like a village has raised my children yet. I haven't got them yet. It's a small town that's helped me get to where I am, and I've not even finished getting there yet. So
and thank you again for sharing your journey. And I love what you said there, just about putting things into perspective as well. Like on your journey, it's made you look at your job slightly differently, made you look at your career slightly differently, and things that, I really relate to that, because things that used to massively stress me out in the workplace, I'm much cooler, calmer, more collected in terms of dealing with it, because I'm like, well, that's not my 1-year-old choking and me bashing him on the back, like, please take a breath, like, let's put things into perspective here. And that's not, the journey and what you're going through, Becky, right now. So I think it's really powerful for us all to share these experiences, because the people listening today, it's really important for me that they see just how successful each of you are. But it isn't that Instagram picture. There's a lot of stuff that's happened that has been truly, truly challenging, so difficult, probably, blood, sweat and tears to get to where we are today. And that's the reality of life. And that's the reality of the motherhood journey. So it's so important that we're all sharing that. And look, we're already at 10:32, 8 minutes of our time left. And I want to take us on to a bit of some final bits of advice. So, we want to give advice to mothers, parents who are thinking of having a family, who are balancing having a family right now, who are on their journey. And that word failure, Becky, that you were talking about, we've got to put that into perspective, because I can imagine a number of people be thinking they're not doing as well as they should do. That word will be in their mind right now. And, if anyone knows me, let's get that word away straight, like right now. But if people are struggling, what should we be saying to them? Dr. Sam, do you want to answer that first?
Yeah, so one of the things I've heard recently that really resonated with me is that, like, we have contracts when we enter work, right? Why don't we have contracts when we enter relationships, right? And our marriage, that there is a paper you sign, but there isn't any kind of like conditions that you put in there to say, like, like, what does parenting look like to you? What do you want, in terms of your free time? Do you want to, go away for some time in the year where you can just, be by yourself? Is that what you need to refill your tank? And, I think we should just come to an agreement, because I have so much problems trying to navigate, like, being a mother, being a partner, being a business person, because I don't have the time to make all of it work. So we really need to have these conversations very early on. And if we are not, able to arrive at that decision, then that's when it becomes really challenging, in the household, and that can really impact our children as well, when we're arguing. So yeah, to have that, like, kind of almost like a not like a prenup, but something like a contract that you negotiate to kind of work things out, with childcare, because I think that maybe there is such a fairy tale element surrounding having children that the actual reality, when it actually happens, when you don't have enough sleep, like, immediately your mood changes, and for a neurodivergent, that's almost like the Achilles heel. So to really put in that support system and actually be prepared for that, if that makes sense.
Oh, it totally does. And thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. Susanna, what would you say?
Yeah, I love the analogy you made, Sam, with filling the tank, right? Because from my perspective, that is again one of the biggest bits of advice that I would give to people, that there's this perception, and even though there's a lot of self-help books that talk around, you need to have self-care, loving kindness, meditate, all of this cool stuff that we can do, but actually that harsh reality that if, for example, as mothers, if we do not have the bravery, the courage and the self-respect to invest in ourselves, protect our well-being in terms of what we need every now and again, how on earth can we use that tank to drive anybody anywhere? And I reached a point of realization where actually I just completely unapologetically started saying, I'm going to do that because it's fun. I'll see you in 3 hours. I need that. All right, kids, right, this is here. Mummy needs this. All right, I'll see you in a bit. And the turning point of not feeling guilty about that anymore is so important, and I'm not just saying that for me. I see it all the time when I'm coaching people, that baggage, dropping that baggage and actually recognizing it's actually irresponsible not to invest in what you need as a mother. And that analogy you made, Sam, really, really resonates with me. Yeah.
And that again is just such great advice for everybody listening. And I really hope that people are going to take that into their day-to-day afterwards, rather than just sit here and go, oh yes, I should try that. No, please do, because it's just such important advice. And then over to you, Becky, for your final thoughts of today's session.
I think it's been fantastic today. And it's the hashtag of the whole session today. Things I wish I'd knew. I wish I'd known at 29 I was going to struggle with having children. I most probably would have made different career choices at that point. But there was nothing to tell me that I would have issues. I've been fine in that respect, since a teenage girl. Design your own path. I think let's not do it by what society dictates. Do it by what it is that you want out of life and what it is. We're only here once. COVID, I think, has also made us more aware of that. And we've only got one chance at life as well. And I think that's another big thing that I've been really taking into consideration. But I do like what Susanna's just said, taking that time for yourself. IVF has really made me do that, because I've been on what we class as floor parties in my house, that when hope is just gone and I need to get it back and I need to lift myself up off the floor. And taking that time for self-care has been pivotal to this process. But if we don't start imparting those behaviours of self-care into the next generation, we're just going to keep carrying on with the same cycle. And I think we're a generation now to start breaking that and start showing that things can change. And you can take ownership of your own life, and you can do it in the ways that go back to balancing motherhood, careers and businesses. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what a wonderful note to end this on. And I've got to say, I feel quite emotional having spent some time with the three of you, because we're all in such different stages of our journey of motherhood, but I can relate to each of them in different ways. What's to come for me, where I've been. And I really, really just know that this has been super inspiring and so many learns for people to take away and implement. So thank you to each of you speakers. It's been absolutely wonderful, you sharing such heartfelt personal circumstance and stories, and what a brilliant community you've been able to build just by being so honest and open. Thank you everybody for joining us. Please remember to stay online for the next panel, and don't forget, Like-Minded Females, their e-learning platform is out there now to build your career, build your confidence. So follow the link, sign up, because they're offering you a free trial. Good luck with the rest of the panels, and thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much for being here. Really emotional this morning, listening to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia.
Bye.